Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, elves, dwarves, vampires, divine beings of Sidariel. I have to say that with the number of games I'm running right now and with our Twitch stream, the Veingate Chronicles, I am exceedingly busy. So our Deafened Condition video is a little bit behind, but I'm working on it. I even have a script, or at least a first draft. This, however, is a quick and dirty Dungeons & Dragons video for you today. This time, answering a specific question from one of my real-life players. Shout out to Charlie. You can see one of her games right over here. Sorry, Charlie, this has taken so long. This is a question I've been asked so many times now that I figured I'd make a video and let it speak for itself. How did I get into role-playing and dungeon mastering? Is that a word, dungeon mastering? Or game mastering? Well, unlike certain YouTube DMs who claim to have been DMing since high school, I've been DMing since primary school. Yeah, I started DMing at the ripe age of 10 years old. Now, it's only fair to put a warning on this content, something to the effect of, back in my day, everything was so much harder, and so you kids get off my lawn. And it's true. Let me paint you a picture. The year was 1987, and I was living in a small, fairly remote town called Mount Hagen in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, where my parents worked as teachers for the International Education Agency. The number of Dungeons & Dragons players in this small town was almost zero. The number of shops that sold D&D books and supplements, negative 1,000. Literally none. One day, a friend of mine from England, let's just call him Ben, asked me if I'd like to try and play D&D. As it turned out, Ben did not actually know how to play D&D, nor did he actually really have the right books for it. What he did have, and remember this was 1987, was the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Oriental Adventures book and the Monster Manual 2. That is to say, the supplementary Monster Manual, not the first one. And that's it. Also, one very precious set of dice. Thus, over the next 3 months, from around May till around July, I think, 1987, I guess, we tried to work out Dungeons & Dragons from scratch using just these two books. Isolated, alone, cut off from the world in a time before the internet. In the beginning, we made characters. I was a ninja yakuza called Aragorn. Ben was a ninja named Storm Shadow. Although I never found out that until later because Ben believed his character's name had to be some sort of secret according to the rules. We made maps, we rolled for random encounters, we killed monsters together, we cheated like hell on our dice rolls, we rolled for random loot, and we got to about level 4 before I said to Ben one day, what if I draw a map and describe rooms to you, and you tell me what you're going to do? Ben was like, oh, well, that's how you're supposed to play D&D. That's how you're supposed to play D&D, he tells me, after 3 months. Well, by pure coincidence, Ben and I moved to a different city, the capital city of Papua New Guinea, Port Moresby, a city with a total population of about 100,000 people and a D&D population slightly larger than Mount Hagen. Because as it turned out, the campus upon which I now lived was full of D&D players, mostly older and more experienced than me by a few years, and they were playing mostly Dragonlance modules and early Forgotten Realms. Over the years, I also had a go at many other RPGs, including Rollmaster and their Middle-earth role-playing game. I played Palladium, Rifts, Beyond the Supernatural, a lot of Rifts, some Star Wars, Transhuman Space, Judge Dredd, Dangerous Journeys by Gary Gygax, and a lot, and I mean a lot, of Vampire the Masquerade. Some by way of LARP, most by way of tabletop. Now, in between all of these adventures, I got it into my head I wanted to be an actor, writer, director, and so I went to film school. Twice. 2 different film schools. One for a diploma, one for a bachelor's degree. I did endless acting classes, and I spent a few years practicing Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, Kempo, Arnis, and for the longest time I was a member of the Auckland Medieval Sword Club. As an actor, I did a lot of plays, like everyone does, of which I enjoyed Shakespeare the most. Shakespeare afforded me the chance to choreograph some sword fights, dress up in costumes, and do long soliloquies and speeches. I did some daytime TV roles, I did some movie parts, even some voiceover acting. Then later, after directing a few short films, some of them actually funded and played in festivals, I moved to Hollywood. I got a green card and did some roles there too. While I was in Los Angeles, I came across Critical Role, and I discovered the rise of D&D 5th edition. I was immediately inspired by this, and I knew that this was where my life had been heading all along. I began the undertaking of creating an entirely new campaign setting called Sidariel. For myself and any future players, and for the stream that I knew that I was planning to produce sooner or later. I was just getting into all of this when good old COVID-19 came along and crushed it all. At this point, my wife, who is an American, and I decided that the safest place to be was my home country, New Zealand, an island fortress against COVID. We arrived literally the day before the first full-blown lockdown in New Zealand. Here in New Zealand, it wasn't long before I began to put together a crew and started streaming D&D 5e. We tried a number of scenarios, various crews, actors, non-actors. Eventually, we arrived at the Veingate Chronicles as it is today. Meanwhile, after running some paid games for a variety of clients in New Zealand and overseas using Zoom and D&D Beyond mostly, I joined forces with Jack Charles from Questbook and began a more full-time career as a professional dungeon master. I also started this YouTube channel. Since then, our Twitch stream has become affiliated. This YouTube channel has improved vastly, so I feel. Maybe not this video in particular, And I run more RPG games and I have more fun than anyone has a right to. Right now, between D&D 5e and Vampire the Masquerade, I'm managing to survive COVID-19 as a professional game master and gamer. It's a bit of a twist from the highfalutin arty films I once made, like Cogito, about a man deconstructing his demons, and Nova, a male stripper suffering from cognitive dissonance. But I have an opportunity here to be part of a new wave of gamers who are legitimizing role-playing games as entertainment, as art, and more importantly, as a form of education, both for children and for adults. At 44, I'm doing exactly what I always secretly wanted to do, and for that I'm grateful. Despite the awfulness of the pandemic, it's an exciting time to live in some ways. This new gig economy has made my aspirations viable. It could be all over next week and I could be back to the talent agents and the casting directors and the cattle calls of my old life. Or people like you watching this now could choose to like, subscribe and follow. Maybe Sidariel will take off like a rocket ship. Who knows? Thanks for watching. If you're still here, check out some of our games, check out some videos, find your true will, and do it.